Well, hello there. It's me again, and today something new. Lots of things new, really. I am very slowly making a shift to Dorico, and I am about probably 100. I think by degrees of 100 times slower at Dorico than I am at Sibelius at the moment. But that's because I've been using Sibelius since 1995 or six, I think. There's a lot of muscle memory to get through. But I'm slowly getting there, and I'm sort of pleased with the fact that I've managed to do my first sort of proper score, um, with large time signatures. Even got a conductor's thing there, with markers, time code, various things like that. So it's a bit of a slow learning curve, but a happy one, and I'm kind of enjoying it really. But I'll probably use both. Just for speed purposes at the moment, just sort of going through. But what I wanted to do is choose something which is relatively simple, not doing Jurassic Park or anything like that on Dorico yet, just because I just don't have the time really, sadly, to do it, especially when we've got a weekly deadline to get through some things. So I'm sort of doing both things, really. But I thought I would choose this passage from the Fellowship of the Ring Part 2, really. It's when they're in Moria and Gandalf is sort of saying to Frodo that they're being followed by Gollum. And this is the bit which is that. Now, if you've got access to Doug Adams's amazing book called The Music of the Lord of the Rings Films, then please do get a copy, or at least try and find one in the library. So this is on page 177, when after all the thematic material at the beginning of the book, he then goes chronologically through the film. So in this bit, he's saying, Frodo sits idly as Gandalf explores his memory, but the bony scrabble of a lone figure in the distance catches his eye. The orchestra twitches, with minor triads and arpeggios suggesting the figure is Gollum, before Frodo realises. I'm sort of paraphrasing slightly. The incoherent wisps of the pity of Gollum play up Frodo's panic. Has the Fellowship's task been compromised by the wretch that follows them? And we've got this sort of pity theme, which is mainly the way all the way through the cue, and then Gandalf glazes out from beneath his heavy brow. The pity of Bilbo may rule the fate of many. Frodo sits beside his old friend, his mind heavy with sorrow. But again, Gandalf refuses to surrender to the emotion of the moment, and Alto Flute softly intones bits of a Hobbit's understanding as Gandalf reassures him that all we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. A near identical figure will return when Frodo remembers Gandalf's wise words later in the story. And it's got a nice poignant moment, and also illustrates the complete differences between Howard Shore's score in Lord of the Rings and all of the John Williams material that we've been discussing on this channel for the last sort of 2 years or so. It's so different as to be almost unrecognisably different. So, for example, you can just see from the reduction that the orchestration is incredibly blended. It's incredibly simple. It's just unison doublings pretty much everywhere. And it gives a nice rich score. But it's the language, the musical language is much more simplified than John Williams. Almost zero extensions. Predominantly root position chords with tertiary movement between them, so roots moving a third, and very much orchestral blend, as I've just said. So you'll see all of these chord symbols are almost all triads, occasional second inversions, and almost all root position as well. I just realised I hadn't coloured the rest of the chord symbols there. So now I think I can remember how to do this. I do that. And then it doesn't do what I want to do. I think I need to go to engrave. I thought I was trying to... That's strange, isn't it? Trying to sort of do coloration there. It should be down here, and I'm not sure why I don't have that there. I literally just did it a minute ago and can't remember how I can't remember how I did it. That's so annoying. Never mind, but these things happen, so we're just going to live with it for the time being. I mean, it's pretty obvious that you can read it. So let's do that. I still haven't worked out all the shortcuts for things yet, so forgive me if I'm flailing around like an idiot. But yes, so you can see that basically we got cello, harp and bassoon all on the same thing. Horns double with the cellos. Then we get rid of the strings and it's just the brass and wind. Then we add the strings back in, this time with clarinets and cor anglais. So there's sort of textural contrast layered in sort of interesting ways. It's also very, very slow as well. So that's just right. So with things that are condensed, I can't click on them. Yeah, so just a little momentary blip where we've just got horns and bassoons. So I'm going to try and go from there. Whoops, that should be an E natural. What am I doing? I just want to... I know, again, because I've put it on that condenser, I can't go into it. I have to uncondense it, then go back into it, and I'm not going to do that. So alto flute, cor anglais and clarinet, all in unison. A little bit of harp movement. A lot of this is in dynamic contrast, really. So he doesn't use trombones here. Just horns and bassoons and strings. A little bit of percussion. Now a little transition. Little semitonal shift. There. Now a change to major chords. Anyway, we've heard this before on the reduction that I've on the sort of music that I've just played. But as I say, it's extremely simplified, and that was a purposeful decision by Howard Shore. It's not that he can't write complex music; that would be absurd to suggest that with all of his other film work. But it really is a very different sort of ethos, I suppose, which kind of affected very little else around. I'm just sort of trying to think, even sort of RPG material and things you get in games tends to be a lot more complex than this, and I wonder whether there will be a time where we do go back to this sort of slightly simpler musical language in some cases with lots of doublings, and really it's almost all to do with sort of theme associations. So for example, sort of going from F minor to A minor or to C minor, etc., those sort of tertiary movements. And the thematic material as well, the design of things. So there's not a massive amount to say other than the fact that it exists and that we could all do this. But there's a talent in having the conceptualization around whatever's going on, and that really is something that is extremely difficult to sort of teach. So it's an interesting one. There are arguments for and against different sorts of musical language, but I think, in my personal view, I'm not a critic at all. But I mean, I love the music for The Lord of the Rings. It's very, very different, and I wish I could write as good melodies and chord sequences. So there we go. So here we are with, The Pity of Gollum, series of loosely related minor arpeggios, A minor, F, A flat, and A minor. Note how the A flat to A resembles the one ring relationship. like that. You know, this sort of idea with minor chords with another minor chord. So there's always an intrinsic, there's a sort of A flat minor implied, but of course it's not quite. There's a barest hint of a minor seventh, which Howard Shore has already stated don't exist in Lord of the Rings. They don't really, but they're sort of coincidental more than by design. But yes, it's just an arpeggio, and then changes arpeggio, and then another arpeggio, and then it changes. Like that. And then the clarinet bassoon takes over when the alto flute can't get there. So yeah, we can see that in terms of the supporting material, you know, the little hints to it right at the beginning. So there's a lot of repetition, this sort of F minor to A minor idea. And we get it all the way through that little theme as well. It's a shame that in Doug's book he doesn't give the chord symbols above the thematic material, because that would be quite helpful, but unfortunately that doesn't appear to be the case. Maybe just a lack of space more than anything else. Also, it took me ages to sort of just put you know, chord symbols just on this thing rather than the harp line, or what would be a piano line, because it's on two staves. But it's not always harp, sometimes it is piano, so it's always a bit awkward. Anyway, the you know, just the vagaries of using a different notation program, which is really good. I'm really enjoying Dorico, I have to say. So then we've got more tertiary relationships as it sort of now goes up to a slightly more disparate area. So here it's going up a minor third as opposed to where it's going down a minor third, well, actually down a major third, but to minor chords anyway. So all these tertiary ideas. So we got E minor, and it really sort of takes over at that point in terms of the melody and the harmony are very, very closely intertwined. So here we got G and a melody note, F and a melody note, but also F and a harmony note, and E but A minor. So almost consecutive octave type sort of territory, which is you know, parallelism is definitely a feature of Lord of the Rings generally. And then we got a little hint of this sort of harp, which occasionally keeps going. When we got this sort of textural change here with the high strings, so violin ones and viola, and violin two, of course, you can kind of see that there's a little hint of whatever was in the A section is now in the B section. And that just uses a very simple transition to get from A to B. And then, you know, once the high strings have finished their sort of, you know, B flat minor with an F in the bass, then we can go into a completely different territory. And really it's that change from F to G that gives us the fact that there's a Hobbit thing coming over, coming along. So he doesn't go like that with chord 1 in C major. He's going to A minor. Because it's sort of wistful. All diatonic. And a perfect cadence at the end with a little, not quite anticipation note, but a reiterated D right at the end. But it's a beautifully sort of poignant theme. You know, all of that sort of Hobbit stuff is based on a pentatonic scale. So lots of different sorts of pentatonic scales. This one is 1, 2, 3, and then 5 and 6 in terms of the of what's going on. Where are we? I'm sure there was a way of getting a piano thing here, and I just can't remember where it is. It's not there, is it? Can't remember where it is. Anyway, never mind. I mean, don't really need it, because it's relatively simple, so it's something that hopefully you can all follow. I won't do everything on Dorico, by the way, just because it's nice to sort of use both programs. But no doubt there'll come a point where things change. Anyway, that's it. That's all there is to bring you. I wanted to do a sort of relatively short one because I'm not very good at the moment. So it takes me absolutely ages. I mean, this sort of thing would have taken me maybe 10 minutes, max, probably 15, something like that. It's taking me about 2 or 3 days to just do this stuff at the moment. Not of continuous work, of course. But there we have it. So that is that cue. And I will go back to Lord of the Rings, but of course, the purpose of the channel is to sort of try and, outlay the language of Williams, because it's incredibly complex, and that art is just going to die because it's not being taught in very many places. And so that's why I tend to sort of focus on that. So I do like little bits of other composers, which is important to have different perspective. But in terms of how you learn from it, I'm not sure what benefit it is to teach, because it's lots of chords and a melody. If you can harmonise a melody and you've got a good one, you can harmonise it with some chords, blend all of those chords with different instruments in a simplified way, and you have Lord of the Rings. It's pretty much the same thing. Not all of the Lord of the Rings is like that, though. Of course, there is a lot of complexity in various other bits, and especially aleatoric moments as well. So it's not all like that by any stretch of the imagination. So don't get too sort of... I'm not going to get too crazy about it. Anyway, that's it. I'm rambling. So that's time to call it a day. But I hope you've enjoyed it, and I will see you soon.